Maybe going live will fix it.
Fuck it, we're doing it live.
Almost there. Almost there. 3 weeks is a long period.
I assume they're in the church.
I'm on my phone for personal runs, which
You think so?
the problem is so many people show up.
How are you? Good. Thank you for you. I did.
Yeah.
He doesn't have it.
How you guys doing?
Good. No, that was in the car. Where are we going? But I love it.
Yeah. We didn't have to go to the hospital. That's really
How about you? You doing okay? That's good. I think I saw your wife Yeah.
I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. She'd be like, it just happened.
I mean,
Oh,
the
right.
doctor has to you see how
There's very few.
I figured
It was
I
probably
got
her.
it.
And it wasn't long like the little
Did you do well?
Yes, she did very well. And your boys are good?
Yeah, I mean, they want to avoid because it's just like going
Like
for
all right.
We're gonna have a good meeting.
10 minutes away.
Great.
Yeah, that's good.
We've got all the candidates coming.
At the end.
Yeah.
We know who we're supporting.
Hey, that isn't on, is it?
Yeah, the buffering's still an issue, but
The mic is on.
Sean, we should
Oh, you've got to get yours.
Yes, yes, you will.
Good evening, everybody. If you could all please take your seats. Appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Fisher. It is my pleasure to be the House District 6A captain. Welcome to our HD6 March monthly meeting. We're excited to see all of you here. As you may have noticed, based on our March newsletter and the reminder email, we have a fairly long agenda. It has gotten longer since the reminder email. We had a couple last people asked to speak. We are probably not going to finish on time at 8, but given that the municipal election is next month before our next monthly meeting, we figured that we would give everybody who wanted to speak the opportunity. If you need to sneak out at 8 or shortly thereafter, please do so. A couple things to get started. We are streaming this meeting on YouTube. Speakers, when you come up, please stay between these two chairs so we get you on camera, and speak into the microphone so that the folks online can hear you. Folks online, if you have questions for the Park Hill Development Proposal Forum, please just put them in the chat, and I will read them to Katie, who will be moderating that portion of the evening. Speakers also, Sally Ann up here is going to be keeping time. She has little time cards. We are going to enforce our time limits pretty strictly. We're giving our state party leadership candidates 2 minutes and our city auditor and mayor candidates 5 minutes. So please don't be offended when I stand up and say time, just as you're in the middle of a really good thought. It's not personal. With that, I'm going to turn things over for a quick second to Matt Ball. Matt Ball is the HD6A co-captain. He wasn't able to make our last meeting because his kid unfortunately was in the hospital, but I understand she's doing better now. He's going to introduce himself really quickly in case you haven't met him.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name's Matt Ball. I'm the new House District 6A co-captain, so the position that Andrew used to hold. It's good to meet everybody. I live in Capitol Hill. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids, as you may be able to tell from the stuff that's spilled on my shirt. And I look forward to meeting all of you. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Matt. Our next speaker, Mark. Mark, are you ready to do your food committee pitch? Please welcome our former DPOD chair and current HD6B finance chair, Mark.
I love seeing nice full rooms, although I do see a couple of empty chairs. But it's only 3 minutes after 7, so we know those chairs will get filled up. So this is great. I'm so glad to see so many of you here. We have a really interesting program for you tonight. Lots of speakers. I know a lot of people are very interested in the Park Hill ballot issue. So it'll be interesting to hear what everybody has to say tonight. So I have a couple of requests, asks. If you were not here last month, and there was not a lot of people here last month because it was the same night that President Biden was doing the State of the Union address, and we realized that he must outrank us for attendance. So I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet for food. We like to have food at all our meetings, so we feed you. But we need volunteers every month to bring food. So if you're not on the sign-up sheet from last month, please consider putting your name down, what month you want to bring food. I will contact you and let you know what we need or what's already being brought to the meeting. So I'll pass that around in a second. Second request. We need to raise some money in HD6. We are hurting. We spent a lot of money last year for Get Out the Vote, and we are in trouble. We need to raise money. So there are BREs. Does everybody know what a BRE is? Can somebody hold one up? Thank you. If anybody is willing to make a donation tonight, it goes right to HD6, to our funds, not to the county office. We would appreciate it. We used to raise, before COVID, when we had this room packed for every meeting, we used to raise $300, $400, $500 a meeting. And we know that's not going to happen right away. But we really need to raise some money for HD6. So if you have a BRE at your table and you are willing to help us out, I'm going to make it easy. Where's Janine? All you have to do is put your name, and that's it. Unless you've never donated before, then I need you to fill the whole thing out. But if you've donated, which most of you have, all I need is your name, and you'll get credited for that. Well, you bitched at me enough about that stuff. So please help us out. I want to let you know that we do have several fundraisers coming up. April 23rd, which is next month, we are going to have a fundraiser, and a silent auction, and a party at Reaver's Restaurant on South Gaylord. We did this a few years ago. It was extremely successful. So we're going to do it again April 23rd. You will get a notice that, I guess Andrew, he seems to be the one that sends everything out. We'll send that out to you. But just be aware, Sunday, April 23rd at Reaver's. I think we're going to do 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And if you have something you want to donate for the silent auction, that would be awesome. I've gotten some donations already. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about things people can bid on for the silent auction. Then we also have booked July, I think 22nd, a Saturday. We're doing our annual picnic, ice cream, all of the above, out at Great Lawn Park in Lowry. We've done it there for several years in a row. It's always very successful. So that's another fundraiser that's coming up. And then in the fall, we are going to be looking at another wine and cheese party, but that's down the road right now. So I want to quickly thank several people that contributed food tonight. Katie March, you made most of the food. Thank you. Where's David Farmer? David, thank you for bringing the salad. Skip Madsen, thank you for bringing desserts. I think that covers
except for that you always forgot that you also brought a lot of food, including all of our desserts and potato salad, on top of coordinating all the food. So big round of applause for Mark.
For the next month's meeting in April, I already have several people that were on the sign up from last month. So before you leave tonight, can you please confirm with me that you are bringing food next month? I know Janine is bringing food. Mike Lopez signed up for next month. I don't see Gail Marcus here, but I'll call her. And I don't see Jared Bynum here either. So that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Two last things before we get started with the substance of the meeting. The first is on your tables, you'll see blank note cards. If you have questions for either the pro or anti 2.0 campaign, that's the Park Hill Golf Course Development Proposal, please go ahead and write them on the note cards. Sometime before we get to that point in the program, Katie will come around and collect them. And then after the representatives of both campaigns introduce themselves, we will go through those and pose them. Last thing, if this is your first time attending an HD6 meeting, would you please raise your hand? In the back. All right. All returners, all veterans. Excellent. All right. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Representative Epps. Are you ready for an update?
Prompt. We have lots of exciting folks to hear from tonight, so we'll get right to that legislative update. All is well. We're doing all the things we promised. In 63 days, everyone will have free college and health care, and we'll have interrupted climate change permanently. So, municipal candidates?
One question.
Yeah.
Is the legislature going to address the shooting at East High School and the safety of high school students?
Is the legislature going to address the shooting at East High School and the safety of high school students? Thursday the 9th, the East High School students, right, and the young child shall lead them, are hosting a summit where we have been invited, we as elected officials have been invited to come and be told what we are to do. I'm glad to be there and get my marching orders from them. Adding to that, of course, the wisdom of being an adult. Yes, addressing, have our backs. My colleagues really deeply want the opportunity to vote their values on the relevant issues, and I see my role as being one of the ones to give them the opportunity to do just that. So, yes.
All right, so second substantive order of business is we have a couple candidates who are running for Colorado Democratic Party leadership positions. The Colorado Democratic Party reorg is on April 1st. It is immediately preceding the Obama Gala. We have two speakers. The first is a candidate for Colorado Democratic Party chair, Tim Kubik.
Yep, right here.
Come on up.
All right.
You've got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
All right, thank you, and it's great to be here with the HD6 Dems. There are more people in this room than the first precinct I ever knocked doors in Arapahoe County back in 2006. It's the power of what we can do. My name is Tim Kubik. I currently live in Larimer County. I'll use my teacher voice since the mic, there we go, we got the mic. I am running for State Democratic Party chair for one reason. I am watching what is happening to education across the country, and I am appalled where Republicans have taken over our public schools. I am currently the chair of the Democratic Party's Education Initiative, a statewide initiative that supports school board candidates and State Board of Education candidates, and we have got to make sure we don't lose those majorities going forward. Those races will not start in August, they have started now. My flyers on the table stress three things. We've got to get organized as a party, and not just here in Denver, but all over the state. We've got to work better to do voter education that is not merely us talking at people, but like good teachers, finding out what's on people's minds and helping them see how the Democratic Party answers their questions. And lastly, we've got to be a party that engages all 64 counties. And that's why I have pledged to go out and visit all 64 counties by the end of June this year to do landscape analysis with them and find out what their opportunities are. I'm very pleased that I have the support of most, if not all, of the county chairs in CD3, the hottest CD in the country right now. And I'm very pleased also to be one of the few candidates that is actively raising money for this race to demonstrate that I am someone who can raise money for the Democratic Party moving forward. So on April 1st, if you are a state central committee member, I ask for your vote, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to myself and to Howard Cho, who will be up next. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
And before you sit down, any questions for Tim? Going once, going twice. In the back.
Besides education, what else?
Besides education?
Yeah.
Environment. We've got a blue Colorado. We need to keep our blue skies as well.
All right, round of applause for Tim. Scott, I know I said there were two, there are three. We have a second candidate for chair. It is Howard Chu. Really quickly, when you're speaking, please stand a decent distance back from the camera. If you're up here, the camera can't get you.
HD6, how's it going? Let me hear the energy here. Because you know what? Denver powers Colorado. We all know this. Everyone likes to pretend it doesn't, but it does. I'm Howard Cho. I'm your current vice chair. I've been in this role since 2018. I'm a grassroots activist, and I've been committed to service at all levels of the party. I've been a PCP like many of you, been an HD43 organizer like many of you. I've been the founder and chair of an initiative, the AAPI one, and obviously your vice chair. I believe in building communities at the grassroots level. I'm always here on the ground, working with people and organizations like NAACP, ACLU, Asian Pacific Development Center, CERC, Colorado Rising, because the Colorado Democratic Party needs a brand. We need to lift up all our people and understand that our values are on the table right now. And if we can live our values through our work, then we have branded the Democratic Party. That's what we really need. I've been elected at the national level. I'm the treasurer of the Association of State Democratic Committees. What does that mean? It's a state party branch of the DNC. And not only do I oversee 57 states and territories' finance and budget, but I also do joint fundraiser agreements. We also do co-op buy-in programs. And we do also have one other thing. We have a vote on the national level on negotiating terms with the DNC. And just this last term, I got us more money, more red district focusing, more rural outreach, more comms, and more messaging. I have a proven track record working right next to Morgan, and we've been winning across the state at all levels, federal, local, and legislatively. And finally, we need to message for success. I worked for a guy you might know, Barack Obama. His private polling and his message testing campaign in 2008 for his Hope and Change and got him reelected in 2012. 17 years of market research experience. I will bring that to the leadership, and with your help, we can build a better tomorrow for all of Colorado and set the shining example for the whole United States. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Howard? Going once, going twice. Please give Howard an... Oh.
Howard, you want to share a little more on your experience as vice chair for the Democratic Party?
Yeah, as the vice chair, we got to step back, right? As the vice chair, you know, I'm actually planning our current Obama dinner plan. I do all the resolutions. I do a lot. Tim and I actually work together at the Rules Committee. We've been doing the outreach program with all of the initiatives. I've been putting in I do all the agendas. I work with Morgan to put all the agendas together for all our balloting, our multi-district caucuses. You know how fun that is, right? So a lot of the work that we've been doing, the process, what people don't understand is the Democratic Party does three things. We elect Democrats, we expand the base by recruiting more, and we are the vehicle to which Democrats get on the ballot. And that is our #1 primary directive. And so what we do is we get people like Elizabeth Epps on the ballot. We get people like Beth McCann on the ballot. So we make sure that they have an avenue. Let's make sure that Erik has an avenue to get on the ballot, and we can do that free without the burden of heavy petitions. And we're looking for more solutions to help make that more viable for everybody, because we understand how much that work that is.
All right, thank you, Howard. Okay, Tim and Howard are candidates for Colorado Democratic Party chair. We have one candidate for Colorado Democratic Party second vice chair. You may know him. It is Scott Mangino.
Hey, HD6! I'm going to stand back here because this thing is cutting out. Yeah, I'm Scott Mangino. You all probably know me. I ran for CU Regent this last election cycle here in the 1st Congressional District. Hopefully you know me as the guy who lost but didn't disappear. The very next day I became HD4 secretary, precinct officer. Within the month I got appointed to 2 boards here in the city of Denver. I sit on the Community Corrections Board, crazy awesome experience. And I also sit on the Workforce Development Board. And most recently, I now serve as your DPOD tech captain. Evidently I'm bored or something, I don't know what's going on. But when I really started to think about my next phase of involvement in our party, every time, I've started to realize that the value I could add was outside of Denver. Even though I live here and I'm still gonna be heavily involved, I really wanted to start to help and build our talent pipeline and our bench in our more mountain and rural communities. We need to start to find candidates who are community leaders to run these races. We need to start investing in our municipal races. I know it's a current policy that we don't get involved in nonpartisan races. There's no such thing. And I do not agree with that policy, and I hope we can change that policy because now is the time for our party to go on the offense and to start investing in our city council, our county commissioner, our school board races, because at the end of the day, when those cameras turn off, when we pass that amazing progressive bill in the Capitol and it's signed by the governor, it's our municipal leaders who have to implement that policy and that law. And if those are predominantly Republicans in this state, the work is not done. So I'm running as second vice chair of CDP to help build that bench, to find the talent, and to win these races that we haven't ever thought in a million years we could run and win. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Any questions? Any questions for Scott? Going once, going twice, saved by the bell.
Thanks. That bell's going off.
All right, we have had our state senator join us. He just arrived from a mayoral forum. I understand that he would like to give a legislative update. Chris? Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, it is great to be here at HD6. Oh, for the
Farther?
There you go.
right there. All right. We need an X right here on the floor. Yeah, great to be with you all. Yeah, rushed over here from the end of the Denver at CPR forum, so I'm really glad to be able to get here tonight. I just want to start with a couple of quick legislative updates. Doing my job as your state senator, and a little bit of an update on what's happening on the gun violence prevention bills. Lots of things we can talk about, but I know how important that is to our community and how important it is to this room of incredible activists. We've got essentially the first 4 of those bills introduced and some additional ones coming, and you'll see those over the course of the next couple of weeks. The 2 that I'm directly involved in is first the waiting periods bill. That is moving through the House, got through the first committee in good shape, and we'll be heading to the House floor soon. The other, so that creates a 3-day waiting period. I'm guessing we are not going to get any Republican support on that, but that's okay because you gave us big majorities so we don't have to worry about it. Yes. The other bill that I'm working on is the ghost gun legislation. This is something that I think is even, it has been urgent for a long time, but incredibly urgent, particularly in light of what I've been hearing from school principals and from law enforcement, which is ghost guns have become one of the principal ways that young folks are getting a hold of weapons. And we need this law, we've needed it for a long time. Unserialized weapons, ghost guns, are causing a huge problem. And we're seeing it show up in our high schools as part of the issue in Denver. And so really excited to get this bill going next week. We've got what I think will be some bipartisan support for this, which is really exciting. And again, I think we'll be able to move it quickly through the Senate and get it over to the House and on to the governor. So those are a couple of really important updates. The other thing to let you know is the Earned Income Tax Credit bill, the Child Tax Credit expansion, That's also started to really move through the process now. So some of the big pieces of my legislative work are going to be quickly crossing chambers, and we'll get those done right about the time that we're moving on the budget. So it's never as fast as you might want. I mean, we're here at the halfway point of the session, but I just want to give folks a really quick update on some of those high priority bills that I'm working on your behalf. So thank you.
And as a consistent theme of the night, again, I'm Sean Camacho. I am captain of HD6B. We did have a last-minute elected official show up, and we'd like to give a pertinent update about some things that are happening in the Denver School Board. So we have Director Deontay Anderson.
Hey everyone, excited to be here with you all. A few updates. One, this is my last time being an HD6 resident, so I am moving at the end of the month, and I am unfortunately moving out of what I think is one of the best House districts in the state. So I'm so sorry to lose you all. But some school board updates. We got 3 big ones. This Thursday, the Denver School Board will be voting to close 3 schools: Fairview, DDS, and MSLA. Those schools are critically under-enrolled. We can no longer sustain to open those schools anymore. One of the schools is actually designed for 450 students, has 62 in it. We're funding all of the schools as if they have 215 students in them. So one school is getting $30,000 per kid, while other schools in their neighborhood are only getting the regular student-based budgeting amount. So the Denver School Board, we fought this hard. We really pushed back, and we were able to save a lot of schools. And the original batch of the 10 schools that came up this last fall, the other schools will be identified for closure or consolidation or reunification in the near future. They're not up for any immediate consideration. They have numbers to be able to sustain where we can balance their budget just a tad. We do have these schools, unfortunately, that are just critically under-enrolled, and we can no longer sustain that in our budget. And as you trust us to be your fiduciary agents of the Denver Public Schools budget, I think you would understand if you were in our position that when you get this data, and we waited after choice to see if more kids would come, one of the schools only has 6 kindergartners coming to the school next year. So unfortunately, we have to make a decision, and it's a tough one. It's definitely going to, it's not going to be, the communities also have said to us that they wish we would have done it sooner. And so we are responding to what we have heard from these 3 school communities who have said that they are really heartbroken, but they want to be able to get some closure and move forward. And so we're responding to that community call. The second thing is, you've seen on the news about the East High School. Unfortunately, we lost Luis Garcia. His family decided to end, or to take him off of life support after he was tragically shot on 17th and Esplanade, which prompted the students of East High School to lead a school-wide walkout and go to the Capitol. And the reason why I mention this is because one of the things that the students started off with is they said, you know, we want to dispel this notion that the good guy with the gun stops the bad guy with the gun. And so we have folks in our communities that are saying, we want you all to return school resource officers to Denver Public Schools. I'm going to be very blunt with you, that's not going to happen. School resource officers, we've seen time and time again, there is data that supports that it leads to the increased over-criminalization of children of color. We've seen an 81% decrease in ticketing and citation amongst our children of color since their removal. We have an ongoing relationship with Denver Police, and we also have our own Department of Safety that's armed and unarmed. And one of the things that the students have asked us to do is they've said, you all need to pass gun control measures. Well, on the Denver School Board, I don't have that power. However, we have the power to show up and support representatives like Representative Epps and all of her colleagues and all of our senators to make sure that we pass those common sense gun reform bills, and the Denver Public Schools is wholeheartedly endorsing every single gun reform bill in the legislature to date. And we need you all to show up as well. If you care about our kids' safety, then we need to make sure that we get this assault weapons ban across the finish line. We need to make sure that we have our representatives' backs when they're taking the, we know that the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Association is going to come hard for these folks. They've already started. And so DPS is ready to stand in solidarity, but also show up and be there at the Capitol and make sure that we're able to put our children's safety first. And finally, the last thing is really around our redistricting process. This area is not going to have a lot of changes because your current representative is Dr. Carrie Olson, and it will likely remain Dr. Carrie Olson. But the Denver School Board will be voting on new district boundaries, which will definitely impact Northwest Denver, West Denver, and parts of the northeast part of the city. And so we're going through redistricting phases, and we only have 4 maps to consider, and those maps will be voted on March 23rd, 2023. So we encourage you all to get involved in those 3 areas. I hate to start with bad news, but I guess I'll end with some good news, is that Denver Public Schools has been doing such great work with making sure that we're balancing our budget after the pandemic, that next year, starting off, we will be screening 21,000 children for reading difficulties or dyslexia screening to ensure students can read at grade level. So that's a celebration. Thanks, y'all.
All right, everybody. Next, we are going to have candidates for Denver Auditor come up and speak, starting with Tim O'Brien.
Thank you. How far back?
That's good. Right there.
Well, thank you. Good evening. I'm Tim O'Brien. I'm the Denver Auditor, and I'm up for re-election, and I'd be honored to have your vote next month on April 4th. I think you have a very profound difference in the 2 candidates that are up for auditor, and let me explain. I'm qualified. I'm a certified public accountant. I've been licensed as a CPA in Denver, in Colorado, for over 40 years. I hold the designations of Chartered Financial Analyst and Chartered Global Management Accountant. I also was asked by the Comptroller General of the United States to sit on an advisory committee to have them test bounce ideas for changes to the professional audit standards that we're required to adhere to. My opponent has no qualifications like that. I'm experienced. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I was your state auditor for over 11 years. I've now been the Denver auditor for approaching 1 minute left. Really? Well,
You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. Good.
The auditor.
As your Denver auditor and as your state auditor, I've produced over 1,100 audits. That's where my name's at the top of the letterhead and my signature is at the bottom of the page. These are financial audits, performance audits, internal control reports, bond reports, construction audits, cybersecurity audits. I mean, we do pretty much it all. I have received, in the 7 years I've been your auditor, 5 awards. The Association of Local Government Auditors has given me 5 awards of excellence for particular audits that we have performed. We're up for a 6th this year, and I like our chances. My opponent has not conducted any audits. He will represent that he has performed 650 audits, which he has revealed those aren't audits, they're really peer reviews. Peer reviews are not audits. Peer reviews take a matter of days to accomplish. Audits take months with teams of 3, 4, 5 people and more. So peer reviews do not count as audits. They will not count as in terms of the city charter requirement that the audits be in compliance with what are called generally accepted government audit standards. Finally, I'm independent. I would never approach an audit with a preconceived notion of what the outcome of the audit would be. That's required by the audit standards. That's required by the code of ethics that I subscribe to that's embodied in state law. My opponent regularly tweets, posts, talks about solutions for Denver city government. Most recently, he has said that the housing first is a solution for the homeless problem in Denver. You don't start an audit with the conclusion. You do the work, then you conclude. He's impaired his independence. He has impaired his objectivity. He would not be seen as objective in conducting an audit of the homeless. Finally, I think I have the intellectual honesty to continue to hold your government accountable. My opponent seems to have developed a campaign based on misinformation. He's been telling people for a long time that I was not running in this race, and I am running in this race, and he did that to secure the endorsement of people, and I understand that some of those endorsements are being withdrawn. He tells people that we transport confidential data through the office using flash drives, which is just simply not true. We don't do that, and the agencies wouldn't give us confidential data on flash drives. We have protocols that are approved by the National Institute of Standards and Technology that we follow very thoroughly. The last one is he's proclaiming that the Great Hall at the airport is $1 billion over budget. They have not spent $1 billion, so it would be virtually impossible to be $1 billion over budget. The last thing I talk about is we enforce a number of wage laws for the city and county of Denver, prevailing wage, minimum wage, and now we have the assignment of civil wage theft. We've been recognized by other cities around the country. We have a group of researchers out of Harvard looking at what we're doing. We built this from the ground up, and they're looking at us as best practices. And I'll yield my 3 seconds.
Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Tim, how many terms have you served as auditor so far? Or what's your Denver?
I have served 2 terms as auditor. Denver, you can serve 3. This would be my last term. Beth?
Tim, what about, I'm not familiar with your civil wage group. So what exactly, can you explain that a little bit more? Because we're looking at criminal wage stuff.
Right. I think they're complementary to
Yeah.
one another. The council passed a law in January charging us with civil wage theft enforcement. We're in the rule-making process right now. In fact, we'll probably finalize the rules this week. We've got a lot of outreach to do. We're communicating with a lot of the unions where their members would be the ones likely to have been subject to wage theft. There are particular industries that we know wage theft takes place, and it takes place fairly regularly. So I think we have something to talk about. Yes, sir.
So I've heard you say a lot of negative about your opponent. So could you tell us something nice about your opponent? What's one thing that you like about him? Because I've heard a lot of negative, and I'd love to. And I'm challenging him to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think misinformation and falsehoods make it hard for me to answer that question, Ted. And when I'm the subject of the misinformation and the falsehood, those aren't the kind of characteristics that you look for in an auditor.
His hair, like, just one thing.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you. Okay, and next up we have Erik Clarke. Maybe I'll start by level setting a little bit. I think Michelle Obama said it best: when they go low, we go high. I'm running a positive campaign focused on ideas. My professional background is an auditor at quite literally the largest accounting firm in the world in management, working on audit across the country and the world. Not just peer reviews, I've done those as well, but dozens of audits that I've directly managed myself in terms of construction, IT, cybersecurity, performance, and financial. I think it's important to recognize that this office is an office focused on actually driving results, not on pointing fingers of blame or divisiveness. And I think that what we just saw here today not just undermines the office, it's personally disappointing as Democrats. Trump-style politics belong in the other party, not here as Democrats. And I'm personally disappointed. But jumping right into it, it's a little surreal running for office. It's not something I ever expected to do. But I've been matched by surreal moments throughout my entire life. I come from a working class family in Northeast Ohio, Cleveland area. Folks in my family don't go to college. I ended up going to college, even going to graduate school, being mentored by Senator John Glenn himself, who taught me about ethics and public service. I had the opportunity to work my way up to a management role at the world's largest accounting firm, working on audits. I like to say from Los Angeles to DC, from rural Illinois to rural Afghanistan. I've seen quite a lot over the course of my tenure doing this kind of work. And I think that's the kind of experience we need, both the public and the private sector approach, understanding modernization and audit innovation. Cybersecurity, look, we have some major risks as a city of Denver, from construction, a Great Hall project that was rescoped and is now $1 billion over its original estimate. The math has been well reported by the Denver Post and other publications. And quite literally, hundreds of millions of dollars between the period of time from the inception of the project to 4 years afterwards when the first audit report was finally produced. 4 years after groundbreaking. That's 2 vendors in, because the first vendor actually failed and went debunk in their tenure at the airport. If we could have prevented some of that snowballing effect, some of those change orders that went into effect, we could have saved taxpayers significant sums of money. Looking at cybersecurity, look, this is your personal data. These are our critical systems as a city. I've taken 2 tech companies public, doing their IPOs and doing their SOX readiness. I know how to establish controls around technology and actual code review, not just system access, checking a box, but a deep review of the code and eliminating some of those gaps and risks. And that's the kind of focus in the 21st century we need from this office, and it's the kind of expertise we need from this office to protect our personal information from theft and to safeguard our city's critical systems. Last thing I want to bring up, performance oversight. I think it's extremely important that we have good financial oversight and legal compliance oversight, but that bang for your buck as taxpayers in terms of whether a program is effective or ineffective and why it's not effective is critical to having a functional, efficient city. I have done that kind of work, both in the United States and abroad, successfully, working for a number of both public and private sector clients. I want to bring that expertise here to Denver and develop that public service mindset. Look, we can have targeted, smart, thoughtful performance oversight that actually yield results in the city. And that's what I'm bringing to the table. Thank you so much.
Any questions? Anybody? In the back.
Can you say something nice about your opponent?
I can, and I will. So first of all, great mustache. I'm a big fan of mustaches and beards, as you can tell. But seriously, I do respect his tenure as state auditor. I think that the financial oversight that he provided as state auditor was good and adequate, and it's worthwhile. I just have a different view on performance oversight. I think we have some disagreement there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. All right, okay, on to the next portion of our evening tonight. My name's Katie March. If we haven't met before, I think I know most of the faces in the room. But I'm going to be moderating the section here on the 2-0 measure. Up first, what we're going to do is we're going to have somebody from the yes and somebody from the no side who are both going to get about 5 minutes to speak. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up for questions. We're going to do questions only by note card. So if you would like to ask a question, there are note cards in the center of your table. Please fill out a note card. Feel free to raise it up. I'll come by and pick it up. But we are only going to do questions by note card and not from the audience. So to start, up first, I have Shanta Harrison Sullivan, who is a representative of Save Open Spaces. Yes, did I get that? Save Open Space, and she's going to start off with 5 minutes. You ready? Yes. And just stay right here in the middle and a little bit further back.
Is this good? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shanta Harrison Sullivan, and I am here as a representative of Save Open Space, also known as SOS. And I am here to encourage you to please vote no on referred question And that's plain and simple. I can't say it anymore. Please vote no. West Side purchased the Park Hill Golf Course land under a sweetheart deal. And they knew at the time that it was protected by a conservation easement. And they thought they'd be able to overhaul the land quickly and without opposition, but they did not count on the vigilance of the citizens of Denver. You know, they may have purchased the land, but it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the taxpayers of Denver. Denver paid $2 million for a conservation easement on that land in the 90s, and the easement is still in place today, and it needs to remain in place. West Side continues to spread the lie that if the conservation easement is not lifted, that this land can only remain an 18-year-old, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, can only remain an 18-hole golf course, which is not true. The truth is, right now, West Side actually has the power to amend the conservation easement to allow for other recreational uses consistent with open space. So it can be allowed for tennis courts, ball fields, running trails, biking trails, a regional park, which many of us would love to see this land become. So it does not have to remain a golf course. They have the power right now to give the people what they want, and that is to keep this land as open space and turn it into something that we can use for recreational purposes. So the people have already spoken on this. They spoke in the 90s when they put the easement in place. They spoke again with the passage of 301 by a 2-to-1 margin. And they also spoke in response to the statistically valid survey that was issued by the Greater Park Hill Inc. organization. So how many more times do we have to say no to this development? I think it's been made very, very clear that the people do not want this land developed. And make no mistake about it, development is coming to the area. Several parcels around the 40th and Colorado station have been slated for high density development. So it's going to happen, but it doesn't have to happen on this land. Because when all of that development takes place in the surrounding area, we in the Park Hill neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods are going to be desperate, and I mean desperate, for a place to just breathe. And I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you so much, Shanta. We'll have you back up in a second. You're welcome to sit down for now if you'd like. Next up, though, we have Kenneth Ho, who is a representative for the Yes for Parks and Homes. Oh, you're right over here. Hi. And we're going to give him the same 5 minutes.
Thanks so much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, and thanks so much for having me. My name is Kenneth Ho, and I'm here tonight to tell you about Measure 2.0. It's really not a complicated issue, right? A yes vote means that 100 acres of new parks and open space will be donated by the private landowner. Hundreds of affordable for-sale units for our teachers, essential workers, and first responders will be delivered. And it means deeply affordable housing for those vulnerable to experiencing homelessness, our low-income seniors and low-income families. A no vote, despite what Ms. Harrison said, means that the land reverts by law to a privately owned golf course. Westside owns all 155 acres of this privately owned golf course. It should not be confused with the City Park Golf Course that is publicly owned just less than a mile south of here. The No campaign has been trying to confuse this issue by bringing up state conservation easement law, and filing a number of different lawsuits. But ultimately, we're not going to litigate the legality of this case tonight, nor should we. The question needs to be, what do we as citizens of Denver get with a yes vote and what is lost with a no vote. With a yes vote, Denver receives a dedication at no cost to taxpayers of 100 acres of privately owned land for a new regional park. In addition, if 2.0 passes, the city then gets to determine what happens on that land, and it guarantees free public access. As part of our legally binding agreements, the city also gets $24.2 million from us to plan, design, and improve that parkland with playgrounds, ball fields, trails, dog parks, etc. This park will be safe and active because there will be new residents and families next door to the park, not across a highway, and these families will include homeowners because of our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. We are donating nearly 8 acres to Habitat and Elevation Community Land Trust so they can bring their expertise in creating nearly 300 new income-restricted starter homes for families. And just to put that in perspective, that's an increase of 15% citywide of this type of housing. This will be combined with a preference policy and targeted marketing by Habitat towards those who live in the neighborhood who have been displaced so that we can bring people back into Park Hill. Our opponents say this can happen elsewhere in these industrial areas. Well, then why isn't it, right? We're doing something new here. And I want to also discuss something else that we're doing new. We're donating 2 acres of land for a new grocery store in this area, which is a food desert. The community has suffered for decades after 2 grocery stores in the area shuttered as demographics shifted. Where else is someone going to donate this much land for a grocery store? This commitment is by us in writing and is legally enforceable at no cost to taxpayers. It doesn't end there, and something that has never been done before in Colorado, but was pioneered in Atlanta, where property values caused displacement of existing residents near the Atlanta Beltline. This was a case of green gentrification. We're going to create a property tax anti-displacement fund. Let me tell you how this works. In order to avoid involuntary displacement, low-income homeowners around the site will pay their incremental property taxes for the next 8 years. Right? Any household within a half-mile of the site that makes less than 60% of median income, which is about $40,000 for an individual, if their property value increases, we will pay that incremental amount from a 2024 baseline every year for 8 years so that they can adjust to any changes in property values that may occur because of this development. This is a grant, not a loan, not a reimbursement. We will be paying taxpayers who don't live in our community millions of dollars so that they can stay there. We estimate that there are nearly 2,000 long-term residents in the neighborhood who will benefit from this. The value of this is priceless. There are so many other community benefits that I unfortunately don't have time to discuss, but this issue is urgent. To quote Governor Polis on this State of the State speech, more housing now is for people, for planet, and for prosperity. For people who need a roof over their head, who want to recognize the dream of home ownership and wealth building, for the planet to reduce emissions and conserve water. The need is now evidenced by a recent endorsement by the Denver Classroom Teachers Association. They are seeing the impact of families leaving Denver, their staff not being able to live where they teach, and ultimately school closures. Rob Gould, in his endorsement, says, supporting this measure is an obvious choice because we are confident that converting the Park Hill Golf Course into affordable housing and park space will support some of our most vulnerable residents, including many DPS families. Several schools in the Park Hill area are facing challenges with low enrollment, and we hope this will help sustain and support our schools. We urge residents to join us in supporting yes on 2.0 in the ballot initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have you stay up here if we can, Kenneth, and Shanta, if you want to come back up. So a reminder, I have questions that have been submitted. If you think of one while we're doing questions, feel free to bring it up to Sean, and he can pass it on along. We do have a number of questions. I'm going to try to keep us to about 10 to 15 minutes, and we're going to do a maximum of 1 minute response per questions. And I will also say that if you feel like a question isn't maybe someone that's suited for you, you're welcome to just kind of pass on an answer if that's easy too. So the first question that I received is what happens if 2.0 fails? What's the plan B, so to speak? And they specifically would like if you would address the fact that Westward will still own the property and that the conservation easement is going to remain on place. And I should say, let's start with Shanta for this question and then we'll go back and forth on this. Who starts?
So it was if 2.0
fails, what's the plan B?
Is not passed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, plan B. As I mentioned, well, let me go back. So, one part of what Mr. Ho says is true. Westside is obligated to operate the land as a golf course if 2.0 fails. However, they still retain the power to amend the conservation easement and use the land for other recreational purposes. So they still have the power to do what the people are asking them to do. Or they can choose to sell the land to another developer who would be willing to use the land for recreational purposes. So I think the power would still be in their hands to do the right thing.
So again, what this comes down to is actually, when you vote yes, you are voting for 100 acres of a new park. The easement is very explicit in saying that that land needs to be a golf course. That was the intent of that easement all along. We think that we can do a lot better than a golf course. We think, and based on the years of conversations we've had with the community, that community needs more than just a golf course and more than just a park. They need housing, they need services, they need access to healthy food. We understand that the city needs all of these things as well. They need housing, they need access to new parks, and they need access to healthy food. That is what we're delivering when you vote yes on 2.0. We actually have a plan to do all of that and legally binding agreements that assure that we have our partners like Habitat for Humanity and Elevation Community Land Trust and Brothers Redevelopment to deliver on all of those promises. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next question that I have is, why did the developer decide to buy land that already has a conservation easement on it? We're going to start with Kenneth on this one.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually spent a lot of time looking at the easement and looking at the laws. And actually, the easement itself, right, required a golf course, but we understood that based on a number of different surveys that were done, that the land shouldn't be a golf course. It's adjacent to transit. The community, the city has spent more than $2 billion on the A-line, right? Housing policy is climate policy. Again, Governor Polis understands that, and so do we, right? Putting housing near transit is what we need to do in order to grow in a sustainable fashion going forward. And so we understood also that the city doesn't have the money to just create a new park or do it. They tried to do it before, and it failed, right? And that proposal was actually going to be half of the land was going to be developed, and half would be a park. We are now providing nearly 2/3 of this land as a public park and providing $24 million to improve it.
Okay. Okay. Well, for starters, you are not providing a 100-acre park because 25 acres of that is going to be for the detention pond, which is unusable. So I would appreciate if you all would start telling the truth about that. Also, yeah, there's no mistake about it. We are in need of affordable housing. We are in need of a grocery store. I live less than a mile away from the protected land, and I've lived in Park Hill all of my life, Northeast Park Hill to be exact. And we have been waiting for a grocery store for a long time. We wanted one in the Dahlia space, we wanted one in the Holly area, and we asked for it. We went through the whole community process and all of that, and we asked for those things. We didn't get any of it. And that's because in the end, developers can do what they want to do, ultimately. And so we're not falling for the banana in the tailpipe again. We're going to be vigilant this time, and we're going to stand our ground. And you know, he says that, you know, there's a plan for a grocery store. But to my knowledge, no grocery store has signed on to be a part of this development. And so that's not something that you should be telling the people when it's not true.
Okay, so the next question that I have relates to that a little bit as well. The question is, if the easement is preventing you from developing Park Hill Golf Course, why don't you just make a fair market offer to the city for the easement? And Shanta, that's your question first. Would you like to go?
No, I'll pass it.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Why don't you just make a fair market value offer to the city if you don't understand the process?
I'm not sure I understand. Does whoever wrote the question, do they want to explain more of what?
I think what they're saying is, why don't you just buy the easement?
Oh, so again, the understanding the easement, it actually requires cooperation between the city and the owner of the property in order to lift it, right? And so that's why looking at this as an elegant solution of making sure that the city gets what it needs and the community gets what it needs. And that's why we have all of the legally binding agreements. When Ms. Harrison talks about the other developments that have happened, they haven't had development agreements or community benefits agreements that are as powerful as these, setting aside this much land for affordable housing and for a grocery store. What I can guarantee is that if you don't do this development, that there will never be a golf course in that area, because the amount of land necessary to do it is only available in this spot. In addition, we also need to bring additional density around transit and around the community in order to bring the necessary services here. And our company has actually negotiated multiple deals with grocery stores. Obviously, we can't get one done when we still need to go through a whole citywide vote.
All right, I know that a bunch of people submitted questions. I'm gonna start combining a couple of them since there's a lot that are similar, so if you don't hear your exact one, that's why. But the next question that I have is, in this proposal, what is the definition for affordable housing? For example, is it 180,000, 200, more? And then the next part of that is there enough low-income and affordable housing and groceries planned on the site? And when would these all come online if approved?
That's a lot to answer in 1 minute, but I'll try. So affordable housing fundamentally is defined by housing where the person who lives there is not spending more than 30% of their income on housing, right? So it's not always determined by the actual price of a home. It's determined by the amount of rent or the amount of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance that they have to pay associated with that. We are going to provide housing that will be affordable and permanent supportive housing, where we're donating housing, land for that, all the way down to minimum wage, people making less than minimum wage. We will be providing senior and family housing for folks making around 50% of area median income. And we will also be providing, as I mentioned, for sale housing to folks making between 60 and 120% of AMI. That means that someone making as little as $50,000 would be able to afford a home and spend less than 30% of their income on housing. Those are the people who will benefit. The first responders, the teachers, et cetera. That's why we got the endorsement from the Denver Classroom Teachers Association.
50 to 60 AMI is not affordable, at least not in my book. And you know, we have to continue to ask the question, affordable to whom? It seems to differ depending on who you talk to. I have to also point out the fact that despite what you all are calling affordable, the majority of the housing that is going to be built under that development is still market rate. And this will be their space, not the people's space.
I'm going to let, if people have, rebuttals or other things to add, I'm going to let them add them into other questions since they're all kind of related, but so that we stay on track. So the next question that I have is it realistic that the city of Denver will get a more attractive proposal for developing the land in the near future, more so than 2O? Start with you.
I don't think anything can be more attractive than open space, which is what we desperately need in this city. We are in a park shortage, And so we have a chance to have 155 acres of green space in this area. It's priceless. And so I don't think you can put a value on that. It's desperately needed. And I don't think there's a better plan for that space.
You know, I think what we're talking about is, we're talking about people and parks, right? We're talking about, we understand that there's a desperate need for affordable housing, and we understand that there's a need for parks. All of these things come into public health, right? Again, going back to whether it's your need for housing, your need for access to healthy spaces, your access to healthy food. That is all included in our plan. That's why it's parks and homes. The other side has been unrelenting in terms of their unwillingness to acknowledge that the demographics around this site right now have gone from over 90% African American to about 35% now. The loss of affordable housing is causing displacement. Putting this park here will do nothing to do that, and there are no guarantees the opposition provides to the city being able to fund the park, to be able to maintain the park, or be able to provide any housing whatsoever that targets the folks that need it right now. Our plan does all of that in legally binding agreements, and we think that it is the appropriate plan for the site and the appropriate plan for this city.
All right, the next question again is going to be mixing a bunch of people's questions all together. To what extent has the plan that you've created been developed with the surrounding community's input, and how would the community be part of implementing the plan and providing further input? And I think we started with you last, so we'll kind of first.
Yeah. So this is the result of more than 3 years of planning process, thousands of conversations that we've had and the city has had. And actually it resulted from the community benefits plan that I've discussed, and that is provided in detail on our website that you can access. Was developed first by hundreds of conversations through what was called a Community Navigators Report. And it understood that equitable outcomes result from actually having conversations with folks that are not normally part of the planning process. And you know, the folks sitting here are all accustomed to engagement. What the Community Navigators did was actually go into the community and communicate with folks, everyday folks, renters. I guess I would ask the question, how many people here right now are renters? And 3 of those people are actually part of our campaign. But in any case, I would just say that the need is pretty significant for folks who are renters in this community, and we've seen that, and that's reflected in our plan.
So I was a part of the steering committee for this process. And I can tell you right now, it was biased from the very beginning. It was loaded with people who were pro-development in one capacity or the other. And we were not allowed to discuss the conservation easement at all. So when you talk about community engagement, we were shut down from that standpoint. Also, when it comes to the community navigators, for the longest time, we didn't even know who the community navigators were. So how were we to know whether or not they were truly speaking for us? We had no idea who they were. As far as the community benefits agreement that Mr. Ho keeps alluding to, we also didn't know who was negotiating that agreement. So how can you speak for the neighborhood when the neighbors don't even know who you are? And so it was done in secret. We knew nothing of the details. We just recently learned about the community benefits agreement and what's in it. And we also learned that those who have signed on for it are now contractually obligated to promote this development, and they are being paid to do so. I'm not being paid to be here.
All right, so I've got about 2 questions left. This next question, we'll go to Shanta first, is that some in the community have said that Westside resorted to questionable tactics to win the popular vote of the community. How would you respond to that, and do you have any thoughts on that statement?
So we've heard many things. We've heard that, you know, there are people working for Westside that have been out stealing the no on 2-0 signs and replacing them with yes on 2-0 signs. We've heard some of, you know, Westside supporters say that, you know, people from SOS have been bullying and cursing people out, and they're just resorting to really evil tactics. That's something that we're not trying to do. We've also heard, you know, people from Westside say that, you know, the people associated with SOS are a bunch of rich white folks that live in South Park Hill. Clearly, I am not white. I am definitely not rich, and I don't live in South Park Hill. I live in Northeast Park Hill, less than a mile away from the golf course. And so I speak for many people like me who are not able to attend meetings like this, or honestly don't see the value in it because they feel like the city is just going to do what they want to do anyway. And so I'm here to stand up for those folks and say, if we fight, we can win.
So I think that there's, you know, when we talk about misinformation and how people approach these different things, I think accusations back and forth are really meaningless. Honestly, Declan and other folks have been harassed constantly. Part of the reason why the group wanted to be anonymous in negotiating the CBA was because of the significant bullying that went on and was constant. We have evidence of it, and you may be seeing an article pretty soon about what's been going on there. But this isn't about, right, the he said, she said. We have legally binding agreements that talk about what we're going to be providing. That is 100 acres of new public open space that is currently privately owned. That is $24 million of money that goes towards improving that park so that this land can be publicly accessed instead of a privately owned golf course. That also includes affordable housing so that hundreds and hundreds of people can have access to homes near transit in a highly amenitized community that would otherwise not have that opportunity. Those are all guarantees.
All right, the final question that I have. If 2-0 fails, and if the city does not own the land, how is the land going to become a public park?
It's not, right? That's the whole point. And that's where the guarantees that we provide are that it will be a public park. We own the land, and our opponents consistently try to make it seem like they do. And that's just not the case. The misinformation, unfortunately, has gotten out there, and I know that there are a lot of folks who talk about just anti-development sentiment in general. Let's not paint everybody with the same picture. We have done something here that is really innovative and new. And I'm personally excited about it. My career has been 25 years in urban planning, thinking about how to bring best practices of sustainable development, where you're balancing the social, the environmental, and the economic components to make things happen, to create new communities. This is the culmination of that 25 years, and frankly is bringing what Councilwoman Kniech called the most comprehensive package of community benefits she's ever seen. That is not lightly said. Please do your research and look at what we're putting out there and compare it to what else you're seeing. You'll see that this is a good deal for Denver. Thank you.
It's a good deal for those who signed the agreement. But, and even so, even with them, it's not. But ultimately, you know, I will not stand up here and pretend to know exactly what's going to happen to the land, but I do know this. The community owns that land, and the community will make a way. It's already being used as parkland right now. people are enjoying this space for what it is. And so we will continue to fight to make this space a regional park and have it beneficial to Northeast Park Hill and all of the surrounding neighborhoods for the foreseeable future. Denver is not for sale.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you both so much to Kenneth and Santa for being here today. I think we got some really great information. Let's give them one more big round of applause.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us. This has been a very energizing topic. So I know it's later than we typically go, but I want to say thank you for sticking with us. Also, if you haven't turned in your BRE yet, please do that, because we're kind of we're getting into the last throes of the programming tonight. So in no particular order, we are very lucky to have two mayoral candidates with us. Again, no particular order. I'm going to call up the first one on our agenda, which is Kelly Brough. Kelly, are you ready?
Group.
Yeah, just stay a little further back.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for hanging in long enough to give me a chance to talk with you. So, I'm Kelly Brough. I'm running to be the next mayor of Denver. And if you bear with me, I would like to share a little with you why. For me, I probably have the same vision of our city that you do. I see incredible opportunity. A city where working families can buy a home again. Where our kids get the education they deserve. Our downtown is vibrant again. I don't know the last time you've been downtown. Where people who are unhoused are sheltered and taken care of by us. Where we have access to economic opportunity and where our neighborhoods actually feel safe again. I'll be honest, that's the promise I raised my own girls under in this city, and I think we're falling short today. And I think about the families in Denver that were not meeting their expectations and their needs. And like them, my family has struggled too. I lost my father to violent crime. My family received government assistance when I was a kid to put food on our table and keep a roof over our head. And my husband struggled with addiction our entire life together, and my girls and I lost him to suicide. These are the issues that Denver residents are dealing with today. These are the issues the next mayor needs to be prepared to deal with as well. And while I have plans and ideas, and I'm hoping you'll go to my website and see the specifics of each of those, I also know this. The next mayor doesn't just need to have plans and ideas. You're really voting on who do you think can actually implement those plans, who can execute. Because being the mayor of this city is like being the CEO of the city. The city's a huge operation. Today's budgets for the city all in are $3.75 billion, and Erik can verify my numbers. Just joking. There's over 13,000 employees who work for those funds. The mayor is responsible for the 3rd busiest airport in the nation, the 8th busiest airport in the world. All to say to you, this really is an executive job, and it requires someone who's run large and complex organizations, and I have. I was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. I was John Hickenlooper's chief of staff when he was the mayor of Denver. During that time, I helped manage the Democratic National Convention and when we hosted it. I balanced the budget in response to the Great Recession. I also, in my career, was the head of HR for the city. I know the city team and I love them. I even served as a legislative analyst for all 13 members of the Denver City Council, simply to say to you, I have worked in multiple branches of government and in multiple administrations, and I know our city is capable of doing more than we're doing today. But I think my personal experience, I think, has prepared me for this moment. My professional experience has prepared me for this office. I think how I work is just as important to our residents. And I hope my campaign is giving you insight into how I work. When I announced my candidacy in November, I made a commitment to run a clean campaign. I won't diminish any previous administration, and I won't diminish anybody else who's running for office today. I will focus on what I intend to do and how I intend to lead. And I think that approach will make me a better mayor to actually solve the issues, because these are complex issues. It will require all 3 sectors, public, private, and nonprofit, coming together. It will require people with vastly different views working together to address our issues and find a path forward. It's why my public safety plan has been endorsed by a former executive of the ACLU, Denise Maez, a former police officer and manager of safety for the city of Denver, Al LeCabe, a former district attorney and governor of the state of Colorado, Bill Ritter, coming together to say, how do we actually make our communities safer? I did the same thing around homelessness, recognizing that we can't do this work alone. So I went to mayors throughout this region. 5 sitting mayors have endorsed my homeless plan and committed that we do this work together. I share that with you because my one goal is to restore the promise of Denver that I know we're capable of, working with all of you and throughout this region and across all 3 sectors to do it. I'm so grateful for your time. I know you're here late, and so I'll turn it back. Thank you so much.
We're going to give each candidate 2 questions. Does anybody have a question for Kelly?
I think
No, take it.
they're voting for me.
I wish I could ask every candidate this question, so let me start with it. In my career at the peak, I had 60 people with me. What's the largest organization you've ever run? I noticed you said your Commerce or HR, but what's the largest?
Yeah, the largest organization I've ever run is when I was chief of staff for the city, for John Hickenlooper. So,
Well, how many people roughly?
yeah, about 10,000 employees. The general fund was $850 million. All funds were probably close to $3 billion that I oversaw.
One more question? I saw your hand up first in the back here.
All right, what is your vision of how organized labor plays into the future of Denver?
So the question was, how does organized labor play a role in the future of Denver? Organized labor, I'm assuming you mean city employees, or do you mean overall?
City employees and city contracts.
Yeah. So organized labor currently has very specific roles. We have 3 unions in the city. The police, fire, and sheriff all are represented in collective bargaining agreements. When I was the head of HR, I think this would give you a model of how I approach this, and I think employees have the right to decide if they want to be represented. And what I would do as mayor is make sure you have access and opportunity to share with employees so they make that determination. And the reason I feel strongly about that is it's the employees who actually pay for that representation, and they should make the decision, not me, about whether they want that representation.
That's already enshrined in law.
Pardon?
City contract, that's already enshrined in law. It's a right to work state.
Yeah, actually we're a hybrid model. We're not a right to work state. We're the only state in the nation that has a hybrid model. So it's not right to work and it's not union shop, the state. Denver is, though, a home rule city, and so those decisions are made in Denver.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. Round of applause for Kelly. So I don't know if everyone knew this, but HD6 has had a long-standing policy that we do not allow surrogates to speak for campaigns. With that said, we do have a representative here, Brian Lomas, from Ian Tafoya's campaign. We're not going to allow Ian to speak tonight, but I would like to recognize him. So if you have any questions about Ian's campaign or things that are important to him, you can find Brian in the back of the room. Okay, and before we go off to our next speaker, please don't forget to turn those envelopes in if you still have them. And a very familiar face here to HD6, Senator Chris Hansen.
Well, it's great to be back up here with you here as we draw the evening to a close. And you know me from our long relationship starting way back in 2013 in HD6. And I'm so honored to be your representative of the state senate. And I'm running to be Denver's next mayor because I believe we need to build a city that works. And right now, I'm feeling frustrated, probably like many of you, that we don't have a city that's working very well, that we're not living up to our full potential as a city. And I want to share with you tonight a few of my key ideas of how I think we together can create a wonderful, vibrant city and tackle our toughest challenges. You know, I really appreciate Kelly being here tonight and sharing some of her past experience. I think it's really relevant. It's really relevant because this is a big job. and it's running a large organization. And I want to share a little bit about that part of my background that you might not know as well. Before I ran for public office, I worked at a $15 billion multinational company called IHS. The headquarters was here in Denver. I worked on giant projects all over the world. Was posted to Dubai for a while, India, New Zealand, exotic Michigan, very similar to Dubai. And worked on gigantic infrastructure projects, running large teams, running large budgets. I then got promoted and started working for the CEO of my company. Again, 10,000 people around the globe, $1 billion of budgets. I then am so honored to represent you at the Capitol and took on the Joint Budget Committee work, where I helped manage a $40 billion state budget and delivered important priorities for the state over and over again in a moment where we had the ups and downs of COVID, giant cuts, and then coming back strong and prioritizing important investments in our infrastructure, in our state, to make sure that we're strong and successful as the state of Colorado, including a bunch of really important bills that brought resources straight to Denver to tackle our toughest challenges. It's the perfect lead-in to the important work we have ahead in city government. And I wanted to share kind of what I think that looks like tonight, and why this is such an important, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and how I think my previous experience sets me up to help lead this city into our future as we write this next chapter together. The reason this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is because of the combination of multi-billion-dollar investments from the federal, state, and local level. It's never come together like this before. The IRA, the Infrastructure Act from the federal level are the two that you've probably read the most about, but there are others. On the state side, again, my work on the JBC, getting hundreds of millions of dollars of investments coming toward important priorities, and Denver is going to get a huge share of that because of the work we did at the state level. And so we have to have a city hall that can lead and get this work done. We're not going to get another chance. This money is not there after 2025, 2026. And it's so vital that we do the important work around creating a safer, more affordable, and greener Denver. So to give you just a few specifics you can take home tonight: housing, transit, infrastructure, electrification of our cities, and moving away from fossil fuels and having more heat pumps, electrifying our fleets, electrifying our charging stations all over town. The city has to lead on this, or we will not get the work done. If we delay, we miss out on this multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And it's tens of thousands of great jobs that come with it as well. Union jobs, green jobs. This is the moment we're in, Denver, and I know we can get this work done together. This is, I really feel like the urgency of now when it comes to this important work. And if we do this right, we can accomplish a safer, more affordable, and greener Denver. Those are my top priorities. That's why I'm running to be your next mayor. I really appreciate you sharing this late evening with me, and I know we've got time for a couple questions. Thanks for having me.
First question here. Being that we've had our current mayor sell out Denver, Colorado to development, and being that Westside has also provided you with funds during your campaign, what does that set you as far as the development furthering going on in Denver? Are you for selling out Denver as the previous mayor as well?
Well, I want to be clear. I am not the developer candidate. I had one employee from Westside give me a donation, one donation. So if that makes me guilty of being a development in the pocket of development, I guess I am. But I have a campaign now that has raised almost $600,000 and one donation from an employee of Westside. So that it is what it is. If you want to look at the campaign finance disclosures and look at where the developers have given most of their money, it's not to me. It's not to me. I think I have shown in my time at the state legislature that I will listen carefully to all different sides of an issue. I will obviously, if I'm your next mayor, talk with the business community, talk with the developers, talk with community groups to try to come up with the best solutions for the city. But I think I want to be really clear that there are other candidates in this race that have received the lion's share of support from the developers. I am not that candidate.
You mentioned how you would like to make Denver more affordable. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the question. You know, I want to, the affordability question to me is, we have just a really tremendous scale problem right now. During the 2010s, we were getting about 1,000 people on average a month moving to Denver. Really terrific inflow, kind of, you know, up and down throughout throughout the last 10 years or so, but on average, it was almost 1,000 per month. And that has led to massive pressure on our housing stock. We fundamentally in Denver have huge supply shortage caused by that inflow and new inward migration. The estimates that I've seen put it at about 50,000 units short. So what does that scale of shortage do? Well, it immediately puts massive gentrification pressure on our neighborhoods, immediately causes rents to skyrocket and property prices. So unless you bought your house in 2007, everybody else is losing. It's a tax on ourselves of higher rents and higher housing prices. And so to meet this moment, it's one of the reasons I emphasize tonight this federal and state that has to combine with the city to get this work done. And if we miss it, we're not going to catch up. And so one of the key ideas that I would really like to press forward is getting higher density, particularly on our high density corridors. So East Colfax, West Colfax, Federal, Broadway, Colorado are top contenders here. The East Colfax BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, is a project that is now in its beginning stages. It is so important for the next mayor to implement that in a smart way with high fidelity and to get a tight connection between transit and high density housing. And we can put thousands of additional units on these high density corridors, do it in a way where it doesn't have a massive change to some of our neighborhoods, reduces the pressure on our neighborhoods, and ultimately puts a huge amount of downward pressure on gentrification and displacement, which Denver has seen way too much of. So that's the scale of the problem, and I am bringing to you, I think, a solution that scales to meet this moment. So I appreciate the question.
All right.
Thanks so much.
If you had a question come to you and you'd like to ask it, I'm sure Chris will stick around, maybe even Kelly will stick around. There she is. Kelly will stick around the back. Go up and ask him. This is why we have this meeting. This is why we have speakers that talk about the important things in the city. So as we close out, first I'd like to say thanks. This is a much longer meeting than we typically have. And I just wanted to say thank you for your patience. Thank you for being polite to all our speakers. And a housekeeping issue. Our next meeting will not be the first Tuesday in April because that is an election. So instead, we're going to be doing it the second Tuesday in April, which will be April 11th. And then for those of you who are dedicated to go out afterwards, it is a little bit late, but if you want to, just come on up and we'll work out some details. But otherwise, thanks very much for your patience. Thanks very much for your attention. Thanks for being great community members.
This equipment is HD6, that's Andy's.
Thank you, Sally Ann. Appreciate it.
Yes, you did. Good. Oh,
Tonight I heard you